Howdy everybody, I'm LordPogg and this is LordPogg Gaming. So you might have noticed that I haven't done anything with this channel in a hot minute, and that's because I was in the hospital for almost a week. I did give some explanation in my recent live play videos, D&D live play videos, but I thought I'd just mention it here as well, that's why you haven't seen much from this channel here in a because I was in the hospital. It was kind of a scary thing. I thought I was going to need surgery. I don't really want to go into too much details about it because I've never experienced anything like that before, and so I don't know. I'm kind of private when it comes to my medical stuff, but they thought I'd need surgery, and it turns out I didn't, but I was in the hospital for a week, and so I have some catching up to do, and I just thought I'd drop this video here, which isn't really one of my more in-depth videos, but it is something I've given some thought to. Here recently, I was able to get my PlayStation back up and working, and so I was able to start playing Bloodborne again, which I know I could play Bloodborne on PC, but I prefer it on console. Something about console controlling and stuff like that, I prefer it when it comes to games like Bloodborne and just Souls styles games anyways. And if you're not familiar what Souls styles games means, there's this terminology called Soulborne games. If you do know, great for you. You probably do, but for those of you who don't know what a Soulborne game is, it's just games with high level of difficulty. They are brutal, they do not hold your hands, the enemies are vicious, there's no true like level 1 per se, it's just get in there, figure it out, and get good, as they say. Out of all the Soulsborne games, you know, you have games like all Dark Souls 1 through 3, you have Elden Ring, which is a new one, you have Demon Souls, even Blood Omen 1, The Legacy of Kain, which is kind of funny, and if you don't know what that game is, look it up. Look up that whole series, the whole Legacy of Kain series in general. Masterful game. I plan on doing a video on it someday, but for now, that's a bigger undertaking than I'm prepared for at this moment. My favorite out of all the Soulsborne games is Bloodborne. Why? Because I'm an H.P. Lovecraft fanatic. I wouldn't say a fanatic, but I'm pretty, I like him. I do like H.P. Lovecraft. I do like him. Bloodborne just kind of speaks to me in a way that none of the other Soulsborne games do. And that's why I want to talk about today's video. In my opinion, out of all the entry-level beginnings, the like openings to any of these games, these Soulsborne games, it's in my opinion that Bloodborne offers the best in Central Yharnam. Now, I know I stated earlier that games like this do not have like levels, and there's no level 1, level 2 per se. It's just, it does gradually get harder as the game progresses, but it starts off pretty freaking hard anyways. However, there are, I guess, entry-level areas for each of these games where you're expected to kind of hang out for a while and learn the game, learn its mechanics, and figure out how to do your best for when you're eventually taking on these eldritch horrors and these dark deities from beyond and yada 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 that all these games, these styles of games offer. Bloodborne is unique in the sense where it is this like a gothic Victorian era Lovecraftian just mishmash, this delicious soup of challenge and visuals and spectacle and horror. I mean pure horror. The crows in Bloodborne, their screams, their screeches. First time I ever played this game and they did that. They launched an attack and I could hear them just, I don't even know how to describe it. They're, oh, it's just, ugh. And the first time one of them dropped down from the rafters and just landed on my head, I literally screamed and threw my controller. And ain't no shame in my game, folks. I screamed and threw my controller. My daughter, at the time she was 7 years old, my 7-year-old daughter looked at me like, what is your problem? I was just like, I'm sorry, baby girl. There are times in life where you will see a grown man act very unbecoming of himself. Regardless, this game is just visually beautiful. It is a spectacle all the way through. It, from the enemies to its gameplay to the horror, the cosmic horror that it offers. It's just mwah. And again, it's in my opinion that Central Yharnam, its entry-level beginnings, if you will, is the best out of all these games. It offers the most out of all these games, and I'll explain to you why. First of all, let me tell you what Central Yharnam is. It's a city that is basically in decay. It's in high decline. If you don't know the story of Bloodborne, we'll gloss over it real quick. I won't go too deeply into it. One, because like most games like this, you don't really get the story right away anyways. It's a lot of exploration and I guess you could say dungeon delving and finding little clues and little snippets and things that tell you about the world that you're in and what is actually going on and taking place. But in, I guess the Cliff Notes version would be that you are what they call a hunter, and you are entering this city, Yharnam, on the night of the hunt. And it has to do, this game has a lot to do with this blood. It's just blood, which is already, that tells you kind of what you're getting yourself into, the fact that blood is a central theme of this game. Blood tends to drive everybody crazy. This blood, the pale blood, the old blood, just ugh. It basically mutates you eventually, and so Yharnam is just full of all these mutated people who truly, and it's kind of sad because a lot of them truly believe that they are defending their city, that they're taking care of their city. Well, really what they're doing is they're going crazy and being mutated into these bestial creatures, all the while trying to kill you in the process, the hunter, who is genuinely coming into the city to try and, excuse me, had to clear my throat. Boy, I gotta edit that out. So they're trying to hunt you down and attack you, even though you're the hunter who is genuinely coming into the city trying to actually take care of the actual beasts. Anything from, like I said, the crows, to the fatties, to the crawling torsos, to much of the worser things that you will eventually experience as you progress past Yharnam into deeper areas. That is the premise of the game, though. You are the hunter, and all the while you're slowly being mutated as well, because the blood and all the gore and the killing and the violence and all of it, the savagery, the sheer brutality of this game is actually taking its toll on you as the character. Henceforth, the character Father Gascoigne, who I'm not going to go too deeply into because I'm going to do a video about a character retrospective on him in particular, so I'm just going to kind of gloss over him, so we're not going to go too deeply into him, so we'll put a pin in that and come and double back to him here in a minute. Yharnam is a city in decline, to say the least. It was basically the church, the cathedral, barricaded itself against it, and while the city burned, and it went pretty much into the toilet after that. And you find that out on a piece of paper, and when you're traveling through Central Yharnam, you will find this house full of enemies who are hiding, and it's so dark in there. And that's one of the things I love about this game, is the fact that the lighting is just ridiculous. You can walk into some of these houses and some of these catacombs and like the aqueduct and stuff, and you can't see a dang thing, and you will either have to use a torch, or if you're me, you will save up enough blood to buy yourself a little hip lantern. Now the hip lantern doesn't put off as much light as the torch does, but it does free up both your hands. So it's a give and take. A tit for tat, if you will. But you do find that piece of paper inside a house that in Central Yharnam that is just completely dark, and it tells you, it gives you a little snippet of that, so keep that in mind. Spoiler alert, it's downstairs. You know, you go across the bridge and over to your first real boss, I guess, and there is a little house area you can go into instead of going on to the boss. And that's another thing that I love about these Soulborn games, is the exploration in general. Nothing is really a set path. It's not entirely linear, but you can eventually unlock enough areas that they double back on one another and create little miniature shortcuts, so you're not just having to fight through hordes of enemies constantly just to get back to where you were in case you die. And you will die. You will die a lot. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. You're gonna die, and be prepared for that. Be prepared for this game to make you feel like all your years of experience in playing other video games doesn't matter. You know, none of that matters, because now this game here is going to show you that you know nothing. It's going to break you down and build you back up and teach you what you need to do to even begin to play this game. And Central Yharnam does such a good job at doing that. That is why I feel like out of all this style of game, Central Yharnam is probably the best. It is the best put together, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The way it teaches you all the game's mechanics, it gives you challenging enough encounters, it teaches you what you're going to need to do, and it also shows you how the exploration works and how all these little shortcuts do, how they all do work. We'll start with the mechanics. Bloodborne is one of those games where it's not about parrying. You can parry, and to parry it's a useful skill if you can get it down, but it's not necessarily something that you have to. It's not something that is necessarily, what's the word? It's more like a luxury item. It's a luxury skill if you can master it more than, like, you know, if you don't get this done, you won't ever beat this game. However, you should probably at least be somewhat of an adept at it. You should be adept at being able to parry in Bloodborne. But see, you don't parry with your weapon or a shield or anything like that. You're given a pistol. And the pistol has a lot of different little functions, but one of them is the parry. And it's a timing game at that. You have to be able to wait till the enemy is going to attack you and just hit that exact sweet spot before they strike, and then hit them with your pistol, shoot them with your pistol, and it causes them to it kind of stun locks them for a minute. It stuns them, which is this game's version of a parry. There's no parrying with your weapon. There's no shields. I mean, I suppose you could get a shield, and I think you can actually get a shield, but this is where Bloodborne sets itself apart from games like Sekiro and Dark Souls. Dark Souls parrying is a big deal, especially with shields. Sekiro, it is a big deal to be able to parry with your actual weapon. Bloodborne, it's like I said, it's more of a luxury skill that you should at least get efficient at, but it's not necessary for you to be a master at it. Instead, it's all about the dodge. It's a beautiful dance, if you will. The combat in Bloodborne is just a beautiful dance. To quote Ludacris, "When I move, you move," just like that. If the enemy zigs, you zag. If you're zagging, it should only be because he's zigging. You know, it is a beautiful tapestry, a masterful weave that you have to get good at in order to even play this game. And there are easier challenges to this game. The weapons you choose play a big part in how well you should really be at this dodging mechanic. You can get like like a hammer or an axe, for instance, that will basically let you spin to win. What they call it. You spin to win, baby. There's a move where you basically just start tornadoing through things, and you can pretty much it brings the difficulty cap down a little bit. It makes it a little less difficulty. Or difficult, not difficulty. What kind of English is that? It brings the level of difficulty down a little bit. However, I am a glutton for pain, and the moment I saw that you could use a cane sword that also transforms itself, transmogrifies into a whip, I said I'm all about that. See, your skills, 2 of your skills is your strength or skill. You know, weapons base themselves off those 2 categories a lot, strength or skill. Strength weapons are basically like, it's clobbering time type of weapons, like the axe and the hammer, for instance. Or you got skill weapons like this cane whip. The cane whip, you need to become proficient at dodging. You have to get good. You have to, because it's not a power weapon. It is a finesse weapon. It's all about your dexterity. So I suggest leveling up your endurance and your vitality, your basically your health and your stamina a lot, and giving yourself a lot of play, and then leveling up your skill, which, I mean, that's an ability. It's an ability score. It's called skill. Leveling that up so you're proficient and you do more damage with this cane whip, because the cane whip doesn't do a lot of damage. I mean, it just doesn't. It's not a blunt force weapon, but it is so cool to use, and I highly recommend it. I do, especially in this entry level area of Central Yharnam, because you go into this, you step into this, and you begin to learn this game's mechanics, and you're using this weapon, you will understand what this dance is that I'm talking about, that I speak of. This dodging and weaving, this forward and backward motion, you know. For every action there's an opposite and equal reaction, basically. The physics of this game, you will learn them using this cane whip. And Central Yharnam offers so many varieties of enemies to teach you this principle. Anywhere from the villagers, who they range from anything from these guys walking around with these giant axes and these torches, to just these berserkers, these guys who just look like farmers, but they kind of act like berserkers, and they're chasing you around with butcher knives, to these men with shields, who, again, they're a prime example, and they're another reason why I feel like Central Yharnam is one of the best, if not the best, put together entry areas in a Soulsborne game. These enemies that you face with the shields, they teach you basically what to expect out of the mechanics right away, because they have shields and they have torches, and if you get burned in this game, it hurts. Fire is just so menacing in this game. However, they're not difficult enemies. You would think a man with a shield and a weapon that's gonna burn you would be kind of a challenging guy. They're not. They're actually the easiest enemy you're going to face once you realize that you don't have nothing to worry about with that shield. If you just get in there and start slapping that shield with your weapon, you know, don't even worry about the dodging a whole lot, you know, just get in there before he has a chance to react and just start slapping him on that shield. You'll break his defense. It just, you know, because what else is he gonna do? He's trying to stop you with that shield, and that shield means nothing to you, and it actually stuns him, and then it's like 1-2 hits even at like low levels and he's dead. He's nothing. That is a very subtle way of showing you that, yes, parrying and shields are good to an extent, but they are only a luxury skill in this game. You need to learn how to dance. You need to learn the dance that is Bloodborne. Now, I say all this talking about this dance, the mechanics of Bloodborne and its combat system, and how it is more of a dance than anything else. To me, that's just, you know, the best. I just love it to death. Now, granted, it may not be for everyone, or not everybody may think that, well, no, that's not the best. There's, you know, there's Elden Ring, or there's Dark Souls. Pick your poison. Sekiro, pick your poison. To me, I like this the most. I love the dodging and the weaving and the moving around, especially with the cane whip, or the cane sword. I can't quite remember if it's called a cane whip or a cane sword. Regardless, if you're using that weapon, this dodge mechanic, the dodging, the dance, as I like to call it, becomes most prevalent, because you don't have a lot of defense anyways. Like I said, it's a finesse weapon. The areas of Central Yharnam and the way that it ties back into itself, and all the different places you discover and things that it does, and the things that it shows you, is also another reason why I think that it is the best entry level area of any of these games. You begin in a hospital, and from that moment you leave that hospital, you're into that city. And then it is a matter of discovering gates that will either open or not open. Well, 90% of the time they don't open. You find a gate, you try to open it, it says that this gate won't open, it opens from somewhere else. You're looking for levers after this point. But it's so brilliantly done how you can begin in one area and travel deeper into Yharnam and basically double back without even realizing it. Find a lever, pull it, a gate opens up, and you're basically at the very start of the entry area. Once again, case in point, when you first leave the hospital, you will come up to like a carriage. There'll be like this area here. It's open, it's outside, and there's a carriage, and you have to fight. There's at least one enemy there that you have to face right off the bat. And that's the interesting thing about Yharnam also. He's not your first enemy. Your first enemy is actually a werewolf who, unless you understand the game, you've played the game before and actually have the mechanics mastered, unless you're just some kind of savant, this werewolf's going to kill you, and you're going to go into like the hunter's dream, and that's all delving into the actual storyline and stuff, and that's not really what we're here for. But the werewolf is an interesting thing to attack you with right off the bat, because it's almost 90% of the time guaranteed to kill you when you're a beginner. And that is also Bloodborne's subtle way of showing you that, you know, be prepared. This, even after you get weapons and you understand how this game works, a werewolf is not an easy enemy to face off with, especially when you're using the cane sword. But it is an especially cool idea that they have there, showing you a pretty tough enemy to face off against right off the bat, to help you understand that this game is not going to hold your hand, and it doesn't care if you get upset. It doesn't care if you rage quit. In fact, it's kind of tempting you to. It's a testament to your desire to want to achieve and excel, that you don't just instantly give up, that you come back for more. After you come back, after you get a weapon, and you come back and you face off against the werewolf, he's a little bit easier, and I do honestly believe that they scaled him down from any other type of werewolf that you're going to face in the game. But in this one scenario, this one werewolf, you basically, and I don't know, honestly, he may kill you another time just because you're still learning the mechanics, and this is a sink or swim moment for you, where they do give you a slight tutorial. There are scrolls on the ground that teach you the mechanics of the game, that tell you what buttons to press and what will do this and that, but it's not going to hold your hand. There's no Cortana in your head telling you about your HUD or yada yada yada. This isn't a game like that. You are isolated. You are utterly alone, and that is one of the that's just a mainstay of these types of games. you know, the feeling of aloneness and the isolation, and it's just you against this unknown cosmic horrors that these games have to offer. However, Bloodborne just seems to hit a little differently to me. And I guess it's because it is so much more like H.P. Lovecraft, the godfather of this cosmic horror genre, and it just the way it presents itself in the style, the isolation here is just different, because there are enemies all around you, and a lot of them are humanoid just like you, and yet you're not working together. They're trying to kill you. They should be human. That's the thing. Like, you look at them, and though they look a little diseased and they look a little mutated, there should be a level of humanity there that just seems to be missing. And the fact that these people who should be helping you are actually trying to kill you, it's just, it's like I said, there's a level of heartbreak that comes into having to kill some of these enemies. And so this is a sink or swim moment for you to learn how to get past this first enemy, this werewolf. Even after gaining a weapon and learning a little bit how the mechanics work, there is a sink or swim moment for you, where you either will just give up, especially if he keeps killing you, or you will figure it out. And even then you realize, man, he's really not that hard, because now you've left the hospital and you're out into the open. You're into Yharnam now, and it's basically you're basically just on the outskirts of central Yharnam. And you will face an enemy. He's got a torch, he's got an axe. There's several enemies there, but the first thing you need to take note of is that there's a lever there that you pull that drops a ladder. Now, there's a huge gate that looks like it's going to take you into this courtyard, and you're going to go that way. That gate doesn't open up to you. It opens from somewhere else. And that's really me doubling back to the point I was making originally about Central Yharnam and its layout. How I just find it the best layout of all these style games for an entry-level area. You basically have a shortcut right there, and it's teaching you right here, right now, that the obvious way isn't the way you need to go. It's not the way that it's going to let you go. This is a luxury. To be able to use this gate to enter Central Yharnam easily, that is a luxury you're going to have to figure out. You're going to have to find out how to open up this gate, and the way you do that is by pulling this lever and dropping a ladder, which takes you up onto a building, and that gives you your your second checkpoint, really. But you're going to use this a little bit more frequently than the hospital checkpoint at this point. You're going to use the Central Yharnam checkpoint. Light this lantern, and there you are. You've got another gate to your left, which again doesn't open. You have to figure out how to open that, and then you got a pathway that's going to lead you down into basically like the town square area, and you are going to be covered in enemies. This is where you begin to learn the combat more. Let me tell you, let me tell you, the fight that you did with that werewolf to begin with, like I said, that werewolf is actually easy. It's the easiest enemy you're going to face, and you're going to learn that real quick. Because now, you've got enemies that are trying to ambush you. You've got enemies that are coming at you in swarms. And you, like I said, you're just a beginner at this game. You've never played this game before. Let's just pretend like this is your first time of ever picking this game up and trying to give it a shot. And you don't really know what to do per se. It's a difficult thing. You're taking on like 5 or 6 enemies all at once, and you don't really understand the dance yet. And Central Yharnam, that's the beauty of it. It's showing you that dance. It's going to show you how this dance works, and it's going to do it with a level of. Now, as you progress in this game and you get past Central Yharnam and you get into, like, you know, older Yharnam and the catacombs and different places like that, you're going to realize that the enemies here really weren't that bad. But in the beginning they were, and the reason for that is because they are challenging. I mean, they really are. They're a modest level of difficulty to teach you how this game should be played. And I love that. I love Central Yharnam. I love the fact that you can become a master at this game, and I kid you not, you can become so good at this game that, but however, should you just try to get on there and run through it like, I don't know, like those guys who can like speed run Mega Man, for instance, which is, I bring that up because that's a difficult game. They speed run games like that. You can speed run through Bloodborne. You can run through areas of enemies, especially if you know where you're going without having to fight them. But if you choose to engage the enemies for experience, for the blood, your blood tinge that it takes to level up with, if you do not respect your enemies, even the ones that I say are, you know, that these entry-level enemies like the Yharnam villagers, if you do not respect them, they will still kill you because they are just tough like that. This game will if it catches you slipping, if it catches you not taking it seriously, it will take advantage of that and kill you. You will find yourself being killed by entry-level enemies because nothing is really entry-level. These are just teachers. These are just teachers of the game, and they're modestly set at a difficult level that, whilst it kills you a lot in the very beginning, eventually once you understand the dance and how this works, you can take on hordes of them and become victorious. But you must always stay on your craft. You must always be ready. Always be on your guard. Do not let them catch you slipping because they will wreck you. Central Yharnam isn't just full of villagers. It's full of these like rat men or something. Like I don't even know what they are. They look like werewolves, but they're not quite werewolves. To me, they're like what you see these villagers mutating into. They just look like the final mutation of these villagers, and they're pretty tough. they're vicious. They go berserk on you. It's full of these crows. You got these like giant ogre things that people call fatties, the fatties. They're tough. You got one armored fatty who, to me, the armored fatty, and again, the beauty of Central Yharnam's layout. The armored fatty is at the very beginning of Central Yharnam. He really is. Once you learn how to open up that front gate that lets you into the city without having to climb up the ladder and go through the whole process of that, you can just enter the city through that gate. He's right there to your right. You don't have to fight him, and in fact, he's kind of hidden. You have to smash some crates, and then there he is. And he's called an armored fatty because he's not like the other fatties. He's got armor on, which makes him a little bit more durable, and he's rocking this huge axe. And he's fast. He's faster than the others, and he's got incredible agile moves. I mean, he's faster and more agile than anything his size has a right to be. It's interesting to me that as you play through this game and as you begin to learn the dance and everything, the armored fatty is almost one of the toughest characters you can fight in this beginning entry level area. There's a few that are tougher. There really is. There's a few that are tougher. But as far as he goes, he actually is one of the tougher enemies, and that's because of how agile he is and that's because of how much of a fight he puts up. People could argue there is a giant like pig beast type thing, like it's like a mixture of a bear, a boar, and it's like down in these tunnels that you come across later on, that you could argue, well, no, it's tougher than that, but not really, because it's not really as agile, and once you learn its mechanics, it's actually really easy to kill. If you let it hit you more than once, it's going to kill you quick. And so that makes it a little bit tougher. But once you understand how that thing works and realize that it doesn't have a lot of rate of movement, you can kind of dance around it and just wreck it, he becomes fairly easy, you know? And then you have your two big bosses who I would say are probably tougher than the armored fatty. But to be honest, the armored fatty is kind of like low-key. He's kind of like your third boss, really, of this area. There's, in my opinion, this Central Yharnam has 4 bosses, and they're all kind of hidden in their own right. Only one of them you have to go through to even leave Central Yharnam and progress into the actual game, and that is Father Gascoigne. And again, like I said, we're not going to talk too much about him because I'm going to do a video on him and do him justice, but that is the beauty of Central Yharnam, is that once you have figured it out, you have unlocked all that it has to offer, and
you finally realize where you really need to go to get out of there and get deeper into the game. At the end of that, there is a man by the name of Father Gascoigne who just shows you just how tragic this game is. And I'm going to leave it at that for now. Let's go back to Yharnam and the beauty of its layout. So you have 3 other bosses, and you have the first real tough boss, the Cleric Beast, who oddly enough you don't necessarily have to fight. So that's the thing, like, you don't have to fight the Cleric Beast. The beauty of games like this is the fact that a lot of enemies, a lot of main bosses are hidden that you don't necessarily have to fight, but if you do, there's so much benefit and reward behind defeating them. And the Cleric Beast is the first example of that. He lies across this bridge that if you walk all the way to the end of that bridge, you will face him. But you don't have to go all the way to the bridge because there's areas that detour off of there. If you're just really not paying attention, you can detour off and not even realize that you could have gone even further down all the way to the end of that bridge. However, for beginners, the Cleric Beast holds a certain key that you really need from him in order to even begin to get stronger in this game. To level up in the Hunter's Dream, you need the assistance of the doll, but the doll doesn't actually activate until you achieve a certain goal in-game, and that is gaining your first insight. How you gain insight is you discover these things called a madman's knowledge, and you crush it and you gain what they call insight. That wakes up the doll. The first time you get insight, you awaken the doll, and then you're able to level up. The thing is that there's a few, I'm sorry, I keep clearing my throat. There's a few of these madman's knowledges hanging out throughout all of Central Yharnam, just Yharnam in general. They're hidden and you have to find them. However, if you do not find them, the only other way to get insight and to awaken the doll is to face off against the Cleric Beast. After the Cleric Beast kills you, it gives you insight, and you then are able to level up. The problem is that every time you die, you lose all your experience, and so you have no experience to even use on the doll. At least how I'm to understand it. I've actually never done it this way. I just know about it. I myself found my first madman's knowledge just hidden, and I used it and gained the insight and woke the doll up and was able to level up even before facing the Cleric Beast. Regardless, the Cleric Beast is a tough fight. He really is a tough fight, and I find it, again, a cool mechanic of the game and just Yharnam in general, in showing you that even to level up, teaching you even to level up, you need to explore. You need to explore before. Don't just try to run through this game. Don't just try to run through it. Take the time, learn what everything is, and search every nook and cranny, because the Cleric Beast, like I said, is hidden away, and you need to find him, especially if you don't know where especially if you don't know where the madman's knowledges are. You need to find him so he can allow you to begin the process of leveling up. And maybe you'll get lucky and beat him the first time, maybe you won't. Either way, if you cannot find your madman's knowledge to gain insight, you have to find the Cleric Beast and beat him, or he beat you. That, again, is a cool way of setting up this game and what this game is about. And I cannot sing Central Yharnam's praises enough about doing it like this and having this be your entry area. Besides that, again, there is the exploration. It's teaching you about the exploration. It's teaching you about doubling back on yourself. When the first lantern you light in Central Yharnam, eventually, through enough exploration, you will double back and open up a gate that takes you right there, and that opens up a whole other shortcut. It's kind of hard to explain, but basically you will go through the courtyard. You will face hordes of enemies. You will at least run into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 6 fatties through this, not including the armored fatty, who is, again, like, he is a testimony, and we're going to come back to him in a second. But you will run into like 5 to 6 fatties, several crows, crawling torsos, a big pig beast. I mean, so much of that. The cleric beast, if you're not if you just happen to come across him, you will face off against him. But eventually you will double back and just come up these steps, and the only thing standing in your way is one of these villagers with a torch and an axe. And by this point in time, if you've gotten this far, you should at least understand how this game works. You've defeated these werewolves, you've defeated these bestial men, you've defeated these hellhounds, done all these things, and the only thing standing in your way of this gate is this one enemy. It's almost like the game telling you, good job. Because we're about to give you a really significant shortcut here. And if you can't, by this point, get past this guy, you don't deserve it. Because by this point, this dude should be a walk in the park for you. Unless you're, and again, unless you're not treating him with the proper respect. Because, like I said, if you're not treating this game with the proper respect, with everything you've been through, if you do not take this guy seriously, he still will kill you. But if you take every enemy seriously and you learn every enemy and you know how the dance works with each one of the partners you dance with in this game, we'll defeat him fairly easy. We'll open up this gate that takes you all the way to the beginning of this entry level, and you realize from this spot right here, right now, I can go into the deeper guts of this level now without having to go through all the other stuff. Coming back to the armored fatty. By this point in time, you've done all this. You've defeated, let's say you've defeated the cleric beast. You know where Father Gascoigne is. You're just not ready for him yet, but you've learned everything else. You've gotten all the madman's knowledge this place has to offer. Defeated the cleric beast, like I said. You found the crow, the crow woman, I think is her name. I can't really remember, but she's one of those characters that's hidden here, and that's another cool thing. This sets up some interesting characters. There is a church, a cathedral area in this game that takes you through, and it's kind of a hard little place to fight, but it's not the worst, and you will uncover more story plot here. That's what's so cool about it. You will discover this pretty important character, and I'm not going to go too deeply into her either, because I think one day I'd like to do a video on her and her backstory as well, and a more in-depth insightful look into her. But you know, it does a good job in introducing a pretty important character to you in the game right here, right now. And you've gone through, well, okay, so you've gone through all of that. You've discovered her. Like I said, you know where Father Gascoigne is. You've done everything, and then you come back down, and at the very beginning of the level of this entry world, you break these crates, and down there is this armored fatty, and you realize, boy, the pig really doesn't have a lot of movement. And the cleric beast, yeah, he was tough, but you know, I could get around him pretty easily, actually. And you know, the Molotov cocktails really helped. Dousing him in oil and hitting him with the Molotovs, that really worked pretty good, you know, and I think I got this. And then you realize that fire doesn't hurt the armored fatty really all that much. And he can jump clear across, you know, the area. Once he realizes you're there, he will leap through the air and hammer you. And he is a tough fight. He really is a tough fight. He's a tougher fight than, I'd say he's probably like harder than, once you understand how the cleric beast works and the piggy down in the tunnels, they're really not that tough. Not compared to this armored fatty. The armored fatty's, he's agile, he does a lot of damage, and he's relentless. But if you beat him, it is so rewarding to come back to the beginning of this entry level and realize, man, one of the hardest fights in this area is right here at the very beginning. And I can do it now. I can beat him now. I understand the game and its mechanics. I understand the dance. And I am now able to step up to partners who I've never even fought before, because he's the only armored fatty you're going to fight. He's the only one. And his dance moves aren't like the regular fatties. But you came up to him and you were able to think on the fly and beat this guy. It is so enriching, so rewarding. And it's right there at the very beginning. It's right there at the entrance. And it makes you feel like everything just comes back. Everything just circles back on itself, and you realize that is how this game is really going to work. That's how this game is going to work. Everything's going to circle back on itself. And really what I'm trying to do here is I'm progressing. It's truly a hero's journey. It really is a circle, like the hero's journey, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And once that happens, once you're good there, I mean, really there's only one other thing to do, and that is leave Central Yharnam, to go and face Father Gascoigne in the cemetery, and leave Central Yharnam. And that right there is the beginning. That truly is the beginning of the game. That right there is now where you realize this game is done. Central Yharnam should have shown you how to explore, how to dance with your enemies, what your enemies are and what they're about, and the variety that they have, and the fact that you are going to need to think on the fly. That is everything that Central Yharnam has to offer to you in the beginning. And now, Father Gascoigne is going to put all that to the test. And you may die the first time. That's the thing. Everything you've learned and you're so good and blah, blah, blah. And you may die the first time. And that's okay. That's the whole point. Because Yharnam has one more thing to teach you. It has one more thing to teach you, and that is Father Gascoigne. He is your final teacher. And that is some enemies are going to be larger than life. It is amazing to me how massive the cleric beast is. And yet he doesn't hold a candle to Father Gascoigne. The sheer tenacity that this man has for trying to kill you. Oh, it's amazing. The final lesson you're going to learn here is that it's not going to get any easier. That things aren't going to get any better. That what you've learned here is just to help you understand how this game is played. Do not expect anything from it. Everything else you get from here on out, you are going to seriously bleed and sweat and cry and just crawl your way to and earn. And he's that lesson. He's that final lesson for you. And he is the final lesson of Central Yharnam. And so that is why Central Yharnam is my favorite entry area into any of these Soulsborne games. I hope you agree. If you don't agree, that's fine. Tell me in the comments what you disagree with and which you think is better. And we'll catch you on the next one. I really appreciate all of you, my subscribers who listen or watch. I appreciate people who aren't my subscribers but still listen and watch. If you aren't a subscriber, I'd really appreciate it if you did like, share, and subscribe. But I mean, if you don't, I understand also. I'm just blessed by everybody's presence. I'm blessed by your attendance. I love you all so much, and I will try to get back into this and come out with more content on a regular basis. I'm starting to feel a lot better. I'm done taking my antibiotics, and so things are looking up for me. Love you all, and y'all come back now, you hear?